Good morning, Bucknutters. It is Tuesday, February the 4th, 2025. I am Dan Rubin. This is the Bucknuts Morning 5 and Change. This podcast covers the national champions. I'll be joined shortly by Bill Kurelic and Mark Porter. First, got to let you know about a key sponsor we have for today. Gooder Sunglasses, stylish sunnies for $25. I learned yesterday that Steve Hellwag has officially joined the Gooder team after being on the, you call it the Krauser 7-Eleven stop and go team off the little spinning thing in the convenience store, largely because those used to be $5 and now they're like $20. So if you're going to do that, you might as well get a pair of Gooder sunglasses. Stylish sunnies, like I said, starting at only $25 a pair, 1-year warranty, 30-day free returns, lightweight and comfortable, no slip, no bounce. I bought 2 pairs. That way, if you go to a game and you lose them, no biggie. You still got a beautiful pair for $25. If you need a new pair, Gooder is giving Bucknuts Morning 5 listeners free shipping. Go to gooder.com/Bucknuts and use code Bucknuts for free shipping. Gooder offers a 30-day money-back guarantee and 100% satisfaction. Gooder.com/Bucknuts and use code Bucknuts for free shipping. Excuse me. You'll notice my voice is in angry. Oh, that's not a good word. Supportive, air quotes. Supportive dad from the stands voice. So it's leaving. Denison game over the weekend. Double overtime loss. 2 losses this year, both in overtime. So that's a sign of a good team in 20 games. But my voice did not make it through the weekend unscathed. So I'm going to start with this. I'm going to ask both of you the same question first. Bill, how worried, and that could be 0 or 100, should we be about the fact that Ohio State does not have an offensive coordinator, a defensive coordinator, or an offensive line coach right now?
Well, to start off with, in one way, I guess I'm a little happy because it's the price of success, so to speak. I mean, Ohio State has a one and done in the playoffs, exits right away against Tennessee. I don't know that all of these changes would have happened. So, from a success standpoint, I guess, that happens. And Nick Saban replaced a lot of coordinators over his tenure at Alabama, for sure. He had a lot of success. And when you have a lot of success, people want your people. So from that standpoint, no worries. Have more success and lose more guys maybe next year. But as things stand now, Ryan Day's got a big job on his hands, filling 2 coordinator positions and an offensive line position. And in my mind, when you assemble a football staff, those are the 3 most important positions on the staff. Your 2 coordinators and your offensive line coach. Great offensive line coaches are not easy to come by, and they're so important. So when you've got the 3 biggest openings to fill, that's you're going to have some work to do. And there's some big shoes to fill. Chip Kelly, certainly, and Jim Knowles, the job he did, and Justin Fry. Some people want to hit on the recruiting aspect of things, but hard to hit on the coaching aspect of things that he did at Ohio State, especially this season. So, it's a little bit worrisome to me, and that those are the 3 most important positions. They are all open, but Ryan Day, his track record overall for hiring assistant coaches is pretty darn strong. And talking to recruits, Dan, every one of them said something along the lines of Ryan Day is going to bring in a good OC or a good DC or a good offensive coordinator. Doesn't seem to have the recruits particularly overly concerned overall.
Mark, your thoughts on 3 kind of big-time guys heading out the door? We've talked about heading into this, that this was going to be uncharted waters, and it certainly has been. But it looks like for 2 years in a row, these staffs have both been picked apart, maybe for different reasons. But is this the new normal?
This is the new normal. And from my perspective, I always hate losing guys that I build a nice relationship with, and then they go somewhere where it doesn't help scouting Ohio, like to the NFL. You know, like if Chip Kelly was the head coach over at Northwestern or Indiana, it's like, great, I got a friend over there. Or if Coach Fry was the head coach somewhere, you know, like, great, I can go there next year. And, you know, like I always like that when they leave and go somewhere that helps me. So selfishly, I'm sad, happy for those guys. Bill, you nailed it. Those are the three most important jobs. But what's so important about those jobs is the coordinators, they hold a standard to your team, you know, that they got hired because their defense or offense hits a certain standard. Well, the head guy is still here, and his standard will still be met by the next guys. And I remember thinking this last year at this time when Chip Kelly kind of came out of nowhere and they hired him. I'm like, oh, so that's who gets to drive the Ferrari. Meaning the next coordinator hired on either side of the ball is the luckiest guy on earth because he gets to work with the best talent on earth. I mean, I remember thinking, oh, Chip, this is going to be real hard for you to make this look good. I mean, you only have, you know, the most, you know, I know I say it, the deepest receivers, the deepest running backs, everything you need to be successful. And he came in and answered the call, of course. But, yeah, I'm not as worried. It's unknown territory, but we'll find guys that make this work. And Ryan Day's standard for what he expects out of his offense and defense, I think will still be the bar that the coordinators are held to. And I think that's more what's important is there's always someone in the building that remembers where that last bar was, where they were last year, and how to get them back to that bar. The terminology may be different, you know, the names may be different, but the bar for success and what they expect out of those units, I don't think changes.
Yeah, the exact details of the conversations Ryan Day had with guys like Bill O'Brien, even Jason Candle, who's been considered for the job back then, and then Chip Kelly. That was kind of, I'd love to be a fly on the wall or get some time to really dive deep on that because there were some sliding doors there in terms of luck and coincidence. And I think when people go to put it in context with these moves, I'm not sure there was it's great that Chip came here and they won it, but I don't think that was some master plan that was hatched over a long period of time and all worked out. I think it was taking advantage of the situation. I mean, the idea of hiring Bill O'Brien and then him going to Boston College, Ohio State has a lot of power. We did not control that. We did not get him hired at Boston College. So that's a major domino there. So they handled it beautifully, and we'll see where they go from here with this staff. But I will continually quote Ohio native and NBA writer Brian Windhorst from ESPN saying, winning a championship means never having to say you're sorry. So we'll build from this. If every year we have to win the championship and then go redo the staff, so be it. The point is to win the championship. Let's not get away from that. All right, Bill, how does this affect recruiting? The three coaches we mentioned on the way out, I would say this. Great coaches, if you were to rank their traits, recruiting wouldn't be at the top for either. And that's not a negative. That's just everyone has their strengths and weaknesses, or strengths and lesser strengths. Do you think this affects recruiting in general, losing those three, meaning specifically, are there any recruits that are now going to leave because these guys are leaving? And what are they doing now? How is it affecting current recruiting in that you got three less guys? That's three less voices out there. William?
Well, right now, it's not a huge deal in terms of numbers because this is a dead period. There's no face-to-face contact. And for anybody that doesn't know, a dead period is no face-to-face contact with recruits. That means they cannot go out on the road and recruit. And it also means they can't have players come and visit campus because you cannot have face-to-face contact. A kid could go on campus, but he can't meet with the coaching staff. So kids don't go make their visits now. So from that standpoint, it's not a big deal. But from the standpoint of staying in touch with recruits and building relationships, now that's important. They can still stay in touch with recruits. They just cannot have face-to-face contact. In the case of Justin Fry, you saw in the article I wrote about this, if you read it, on Bucknuts, and hopefully most of you did, that it did have some impact. Max Riley, I really thought he was going to make his college choice the middle of this month, and I was tending to feel good about Ohio State. Now it's just kind of set things back. He wants to hear out Ohio State, as he put it, with the new coaching situation. So he's going to wait and see who they hire and hear out Ohio State before he makes a decision. Sam Greer had a great relationship with Justin Fry. And he told me this definitely impacts things. So it's going to be incumbent on whoever is hired to establish a great relationship with Sam Greer. Adam Guthrie, he's going to wait things out too. So the positive is those guys are going to wait things out. The negative is that it kind of sets things back. Much depends on who Ryan Day hires and their recruiting ability. Go back to Urban Meyer. What did he always say? The number one thing he looked for in a coaching hire, was their ability to recruit over coaching ability and everything else. That was number one to him. I don't think that's the case with Ryan Day. I don't think that's necessarily number one when he goes to hire a coach. So, but it is important. So it's going to be incumbent to hire guys that can recruit. Now, I will say, typically, coordinators are not your top recruiters on the staff. Their job, first and foremost, is to coordinate a great offense and a great defense. So it is not that atypical that Chip Kelly was not necessarily a great recruiter, nor was Jim Knowles. That doesn't mean, though, that Ryan Day can't hire a great recruiter. Jeff Hafley came into Ohio State. I remember talking to somebody not too long before he was hired. He said, Bill, I can't tell you the name, but you better start thinking out of the box. Not Ohio State related, not necessarily college related. And it became Jeff Hafley, and he did a great job as a defensive coordinator, but he also did pretty well recruiting. So it would be nice if whoever is hired could have both of those traits for the positions that are open. Great coach, great recruiter.
Marcus, your thoughts?
Talking to college coaches, there's more and more guys that don't like this new landscape of college football. Shocking. But they don't want to recruit, and they're tired of this brand of recruiting and recruiting your own roster. And I know coaches that have made the jump to the NFL and made successful jumps to the NFL. And I know one coach in particular, if he knew I was talking about him, he'd be mad, but he loved college football more than his own family. Like, he was Mr. College Football. I mean, he went from job to job and did it diligently, going up the ladder. And he got an opportunity to go to the NFL. And he's like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to go to the NFL. He didn't like the NFL, didn't think it was. He wouldn't come back to college football if you paid him, a king's ransom. And because after practice is over, he gets to go home. He gets to go home. It's that simple. I don't have to stay at the office till 10 o'clock at night with a phone chart, a spreadsheet of every recruit I've called. What did I talk to him about? Oh, he plays Xbox, likes Mortal Kombat, won his game last week. Hang up, next kid. Mom's sick. Dad did this. Little brother's doing. I mean, taking notes diligently throughout the night, talking to recruits, making sure that they love you. And that, just like Urban Meyer said, if you can't recruit or whatever, we don't need you. He was a guy that could recruit and did that type of work. And it just, for some of these older veteran guys, you can't see Chip Kelly with his little notebook out writing down each night who he talked to. And, hey, when I call Billy back next week, I go to my notes and be like, hey, you still playing Mortal Kombat this week? Are you on level 4 yet? Like, that just doesn't seem like some of these guys. So losing them, it's tough. And it's, like I said, more money, more problems, but we will be fine. There will be young, hungry guys that want this opportunity and that will go to the wall for Ohio State. And I know that's the type of guy that will come in, like the guy with his battery on full, not with the battery kind of blinking, saying, Do I have to go to Texas next week to go to those 7 high schools and fly out? I mean, I hate to make this recruiting seem like it's awful, but it is a grind for these guys. I mean, you're Ohio State, you win the national championship. You know what you get handed in the locker room? A plane ticket where you're leaving the next morning and your itinerary for where you're going. Hey, capitalize off this game. Get to that school tomorrow morning while it's still fresh. And you mean, no, I don't get to see my family and have a dinner, and I don't get to relax a little bit tomorrow. Maybe I was going to sleep in. We just won the national championship. I was going to get up at 8:30. And so I think that, you know, I know I'm a little digression on this, how tough recruiting is, and you're losing guys, but this has changed in the last couple of years. And Saban left. Other guys have left. And I think you're going to see more of it. Throw in that these guys are getting paid. You know, hey, write your own check, whatever you want. Like, it's hard to, you know, pass that stuff up. So the money factor, the recruiting age, you know, we're talking about now, I see more people leaving, and it doesn't scare me. Life goes on. You know, keep someone like Ryan Day to keep the standard high.
Also, then you do all that work and go all through everything that you've gone through, for a year, 2 years, and then all of a sudden at the last minute, somebody comes in and gives them a great offer, and it's gone.
Interesting. I saw Urban interviewed on this, and Mark, I'd love to get you to comment on this because I think you're right. But Urban also said there's going to be less time on the road because all anyone really cares about is what Bill said, the number at the end of the discussion. I don't think I don't think you can just go out with a number, show up at someone's house and be like 20,000, yes or no. You do have to build a relationship. But it is interesting that relationships are going to get trumped. I just find that so interesting. It's going to be like a case-by-case basis. Go ahead, Mark.
Teacher put in a comment that's an interesting point. Is some of these recruits need to feel your love. They need to constantly, there you go. Yeah. So it is a constant drumbeat of flowers and champagne and love letters. And if you don't get a love letter this week, you're like, oh, I wonder what I did to Ohio State to piss them off. They haven't called me this week. They haven't sent me one of their graphics. They haven't had that type of stuff, you know. I don't know. I think that does get to, and Dan, you might be right. It might be more to a free agent type feel where it's just about the check. Like, hey, this kid's looking for 50. Let's give him 65. And, you know, right. You become a professional negotiator, almost like an attorney more than a coach on that side of it. I've been saying that's coming for a while. And I think we're starting to see the NFL mirror, you know, free agency type thing. But regardless, recruiting's a grind. It really is the part of the job that the season's over and you go, oh boy, do I have to go do this? And you have to do it with a passion and a love that's not fake, that is genuine, that the kids actually feel, that the high school coaches feel. You know, you got to go put that time in, and it's real time. I mean, you know how many coaches I know are sitting at basketball games watching a recruit that they're not even going to get? You know, and you've wait. I mean, I've sat with coaches at basketball games, and a couple of days later, I'm like, the kid signed somewhere else, and it's like, yeah, that whole day was a waste. You know, I mean, there's a lot of that spinning your tires. So not to, you know, hammer this point home. I don't. If I was a college coach, I think I personally would be looking to get to the NFL. So I have a sympathetic side of me that's like, oh, you hit the eject button. God, you're lucky. You know, you got out just in time and you got your payday. And I think there's other guys that may be jealous of that. You know, that, wow, he's going to live the easy life there. He gets to do X's and O's, guys, all day. That's what he gets to do. Wow, he's a coach again. So not
only that, you mentioned Jeff Hafley, Bill, who parlayed his success here, if I can remember this correctly, went to Boston College as head coach and then left Boston College. Didn't he go leave to be the Dolphins defensive coordinator? If I have that wrong, it's another Southern NFL team. Green Bay, that's my fault. But one of the things that's different also, when you're not the head coach, like you mentioned, Mark, at 5 p.m. and you drive away in the rearview mirror, the job goes away. Even if your guys get busted at night, which you have to worry about, that's the head coach's responsibility, man. That ain't yours. So Hafley chopped his responsibility and his stress, probably kept his salary similar. I guess Boston College for Green Bay weather is not much of a trade-off, but Here's what I want to ask, and I want to make sure we set this for Bucknuts. Do you get the sense that these openings are any less coveted than they were beforehand? So we sit around here and be like, oh my God, Ohio State, we have all these openings. What's going on? I want to make sure it gets across to the people outside here. Those jobs, I mean, you saw the pictures Mark put from the lobby. I can only imagine if they said, all right, from 100 yards away, first one to this point right here gets an Ohio State job. It would look like a friggin' zombie movie, dude. They'd be like crawling over each other, ripping limbs off and stuff. So, Mark, can you please put that in context? And Bill, if you could follow up, that'd be great.
I said it a second ago. No doubt he finds guys that are hungry, that want this job, that care nothing about the NFL. Forget what I've said, that my negative Debbie Downer type thing where I would go to the NFL. There are guys that are dogged recruiters, and some of their names, and Brian Hartline's one of them, and I know he's one of the bigger candidates, but you will bring in a guy that will give you that 18-hour day and wake up the next morning with a smile at 4:30 a.m. and be like, I'm ready for another one. Thank you, sir. May I have another?
Right.
And I think that is what you're – and you know what? If I was a head coach, I wouldn't mind recharging 33% of my staff every year. If 33% of my staff left because they were a little burnt out, a little they romanticized about another career somewhere, good. Please let me know, because this is not a career for those guys that are on the fence. This is a career.
Complacency.
Yes, this is a career for young guys that want to make a name for themselves, that want to go. And this is always the hardest thing I thought as a head coach. When your assistants come to you and say, hey, I got a call for an interview. Okay, I'm going to help you, should be the next words out of your mouth. You want this job? You did your work for me. I'm going to go do my work for you. And tell the next guy that I did this for him, because I want a good recruit for the next guy, because I understand to get a coordinator at this level, the type of guy he is he wants to be me. He secretly wants this job, even though he's not going to say it.
Better.
He better want this job, and he better be gunning for my job, because that's the right type of guy. Now, it's scary to put yourself surrounded by these alpha males that want to lead the pack, but that's where this type of career, this path is headed. Is you need type A personalities, first thing in the morning guys. So you said it, like, these jobs are the hottest job. There's guys that are probably willing, like Chip Kelly, to leave UCLA in the dust to come sit at Ohio State, whether that's a Matt Campbell, Jason Candle, a Luke Fickle, whoever it may be out there that would come to do this job. This is the like I said, who gets to drive the Ferrari is who I thought last year. Oh, Chip's going to drive the Ferrari, that lucky son of a gun. He just has to turn the key and, take the top down, and it's a lot of fun. And it was a heck of a ride with Chip driving the Ferrari.
Before I get to our ad from Joy Mode here, Patrick Murphy's favorite, let's all use the golden rule here when we talk about Chip. He wanted play calling and no responsibilities. That's what he wanted when he came from UCLA. And he got a championship for himself and his allegedly his best buddy. I know they're real tight. And now he gets to go make $6 million to work in Las Vegas for the Raiders. What would you do? Honestly, look in the mirror and ask yourself what you'd do. I'm not going to reveal what Bill told me he would do, but let's just say Bill would be on the strip and his per diem would have to go up. Speaking of per diem, if your per diem needs to go up, Joy Mode is our sponsor. Say goodbye to weakness in the bedroom with Joy Mode's Sexual Performance Booster. All natural supplement designed to enhance your experience. It's not just about sex, though. Daily use supports healthier blood vessels, boosts heart health, and enhances your athletic performance. Who knew? Simply mix with a pack of water and feel effects within 45 minutes. 4 simple, proven ingredients, unlike prescription options that involve doctor visits and managing refills. If you are looking to take your game to the next level, visit tryjoymode.com, tryjoymode.com. Bucknuts users use code Bucknuts for 20% off single purchases and 30% off subscription orders. That's tryjoymode.com and use code Bucknuts for great discounts. Tell them Pat Murphy sent you. All right, let's answer some questions here. Bill, I have one for you. We talked about running backs. I've butchered the name Favor Aki several ways to Sunday. You have an article up now about the guys they are focused on. It really is a who's who of running backs. It looks like we like guys from Georgia, Florida, and Texas again, which I like. Take us kind of up to speed right now if you had to kind of assess the running back market. And then maybe at the end, throw in this. Do you expect them to go after another running back to add to James Peoples and C.J. Donaldson, who right now appear to be the two backs Ohio State will have for next season?
Well, I'll start with that second part first. And that, the traditional number of running backs on scholarship is either 5 or 6. And right now, Ohio State, when you count the 2025 signees and C.J. Donaldson coming in from West Virginia, they've got 5 scholarship running backs on the roster. So they're in pretty good shape. As long as nobody leaves between now and next season, they're in pretty good shape. So I think they're, obviously if an Alabama situation came up where the head coach retires or whatever, and you've got some guys on the market possibly, like a Caleb Downs, for instance, or a Seth McLaughlin, then you look at that situation. But generally speaking, I think they're in good shape unless something like that falls out of the tree and they go after it. As far as the 2026 running backs, there are some very good ones that people should know about if they don't already. Savion Hyder is arguably the top running back in the country for the class of 2026, and he has Ohio State as one of his top 3 to 5 schools. And he will get back to Ohio State, he has told me, most likely in the spring, probably also for official visit. You got Derek Cooper down in Florida, who is an ultra-talented running back that I look to get back to Ohio State in the spring, as well as likely an official visit. Jonathan Hatton Jr. is a guy from Texas that a lot of people weren't talking about, maybe because he was committed to Oklahoma. He then decommitted. He is absolutely very interested in Ohio State. And you mentioned Favor Aki. He hadn't been offered a scholarship yet, but it would be anything but a shock if he were to eventually get a scholarship offer from the Buckeyes. Jay Lamar from Georgia, Carson Baker from Georgia are 2 more really good running backs that are highly interested in Ohio State. So, that's 5, 6, 7 guys right there. And that's not all, but that's 5 or 6, 7 guys, top guys to think about when you're thinking about running backs. And Ohio State, they're going to sign at least one 2026 running back, very possibly 2. We have to wait and see how things shake out in this world of the transfer portal. It's hard to plan that far in advance and be tremendously accurate, but they're going to get at least 1 and quite possibly 2.
Marcus, your vibe on Favor Aki and the Ohio running backs meeting the national caliber recruiting standard they've established?
I think the best 3 running backs that I looked at in Ohio, and I might not be right, but Sean Alston up at Painesville Harvey, and he's got a big offer list and looks like he's about to commit or maybe committed last week.
Probably not commit to USC.
Yeah, might not be that level of back. I don't know if that's the right way to say it, but when I watched him, he dominated some competition, and I don't know if he was as good as we think he is, because the competition, I don't know if it pushed him. We'll see. So that's my take there. Favor Aki is definitely the one with the most juice and has more explosion, and that's also why I wasn't sure about Alston being that great, because you could put on those 2 films and see the difference in foot speed. C.J. Newell at Glenville is a defensive back, but he also plays running back. And at camps last year, he was pretty uncoverable at running back. So I always throw out that Glenville running back, because if he has a big senior year, there could be a place as an extra running back for someone like that at Ohio State. I watched his film again the other day, and I was really impressed when he got in the open field, the foot speed of him. I think Alston may be a little bit bigger. That's maybe why his foot speed isn't the same as these other guys. But for Ohio State, there's only one foot speed you can have, and it's the max. Like, you either go like hell or you don't go at all. So the 2 that have that trait, Favor Aki and maybe C.J. Newell, but you sacrifice a little size with those guys. that's why the national board has become a little more appealing. There's maybe more of a complete back that has, the size, power, the everything that goes along with that speed. But Favorite Key is definitely a name we need to monitor, especially going into June.
I would encourage everybody to go watch some clips of CJ Donaldson from West Virginia. This is not the kind of back we have had in the past. He is a big dude, legitimately. And I'll tell you who he reminds me of, Mark. And I remember this guy because you had one of my favorite lines in recruiting about him. When I asked you if he was any good, you said, "It looks like a bear got loose at a campsite." I have no idea what that means, but I don't think it'd be good for the campsite. And it was LJ Scott from the Northeast Ohio. He went to Michigan State, and he was a bigger, stronger back. He never really materialized there. I think he had some other issues. But listen, man, in terms of the, what do they call it? Power and speed combination and running backs. Now that's like everyone wants that Detroit Lions vibe. This dude is bigger than Judkins by a good amount. He's a former tight end, and he is a demon in the red zone. So I would encourage everybody to go check that out.
And Dan, while we're talking about that, some props need to be thrown Carlos Loughlin's way.
This is
about coaching hires. Ryan Day hit a home run with that coaching hire. Carlos Loughlin, first of all, how did that work out with two great running backs, Henderson and Judkins? Well, it seems like it worked out pretty darn well, and both are now headed to the NFL. That wasn't necessarily an easy situation to navigate when you got two guys as good as that and mold them together, get their touches, and make it all work out. Carlos Loughlin was a part of that. And he goes out, and how hard is it to get in one recruiting class 3 really good running backs? And they are all really good. They're all 4 stars, all have different traits. He goes out and gets 3 really, really good running backs in the same class. It's hard to get 2. He got 3. And then on top of that, he goes and gets what you were talking about, Dan, an absolutely guy that can come in and be a big contributor right away from the portal, CJ Donaldson. So Carlos Loughlin, a lot of props there.
Oh, the digression is definitely coming. First of all, CJ Donaldson, I think we said was kind of like a Trey Sermon, like
he's
that
bigger, dude.
Power. Yeah, bigger, powerful. This is an LJ Scott signed helmet. I happen to be at
what high school is it? Hubbard?
This is his Hubbard helmet. Yep, from high school. I was at the local T-shirt shop the day he was kind of doing a signing of T-shirts and pictures and anything he could get his hands on, because he was going to be the big time, thing, and he was going to leave Michigan State early. He got drafted by the Ravens and all that stuff, and he proceeded to do a number of stupid things that took him out of it. It may have been female related and financial decisions, but as you were talking about that, I'm like, that's right. I had that LJ Scott helmet signed that was going to be worth something.
Yeah.
And I ran back to the corner of my office where it was still in a bag. And I'm thinking, boy, I don't even know if that's worth the helmet that it's printed on right now. So the well-laid plans that didn't come to fruition.
But worth the gamble in that he was.
Yeah, he was.
I'm trying to think if I've liked. And I've said this before. I'm trying to think if I've liked an Ohio running back as much as I did him. Now, I did not know of his off-field proclivities at the time, but in terms of just a man, he was the classic man among boys. He was like the guy who had a mustache when you were all 14, and they put it running back. And that guy usually flames out, and he just kept getting bigger and stronger and faster.
If you remember, he took Michigan State freshman year. He scored a touchdown to beat someone really important there to get him to the bowl game. He really had a Maurice Claret type freshman year where I think he thought he was Maurice Claret and then some, and didn't have to work for it. And eventually, the train wreck.
Shocker, a high school star was led astray by people who put faith in things not related to football. Yeah. Not the most uncommon story. All right. How about this, Bill? And I'd like your comments on this as well, Marcus. I believe he's from Toledo. Victor Singleton, defensive back, has committed to Illinois. My assumption when they do that is they are told they're not going to get an offer from Ohio State. Bill, your thoughts on Victor Singleton? Did they let one get away here? I know we covered him a little bit. Your thoughts on him? And then was it he just didn't want to do it or whatever? Go ahead, Mark, after that.
He did have an offer from Ohio State. But to be honest, I never really thought he was going to end up at Ohio State. Now, I will say the Illinois part of it surprised me a little bit. I didn't really have on my bingo card 3 months ago that it was going to be Illinois at the end of January, beginning of February. So that one wasn't quite on my bingo card, but it was on my bingo card that Singleton probably was not going to end up at Ohio State. Good player, very good player. But to be honest, you got Albert Rockhill. Certainly that I think Ohio State has a very realistic shot at landing. In fact, I tend to think even though Oregon and some other schools or USC are impressing him and are really ready to perhaps throw a lot of things at him, I think Ohio State could get that. And I just thought that Singleton was probably going to go elsewhere, and that's what happened.
Mark, Vic Singleton, and then after that, your thoughts on Albert Rockhill a little bit, because we maybe have not given him his national vibe is higher than I may have thought. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think Illinois outkicked their coverage getting Singleton. And just my initial thoughts is maybe most of the country thought Singleton was probably going to Ohio State, and they maybe let off the gas recruiting him, and Illinois didn't. But I think the Illinois commitment may have some people who are in a better position than Illinois to give him some NIL and maybe pull him from. So I'd say that story isn't over yet, unless there's some family connection in Illinois. But I think Singleton gets recruited still by some USCs and Oregons. I mean, he was up there for me. He's just not as thick as Albert Hill. Albert Hill is a thicker version or a stronger version of Singleton, maybe a little more developed version of Singleton. So that's, how I see him. Now, Albert Hill is a freak show on offense or defense. If Brian Hartline said, hey, I want you to play receiver, he could flip over to that side of the ball and be a starter on offense if he had to. Very well developed. I haven't seen him at raw talent yet. I have seen Jacob Witherspoon on the 7-on-7 team, and he's looking good. But there's two players right there that may have been ahead of Singleton and maybe why he thought to go somewhere else. Same thing with Alshon Austin. I think USC he might have outkicked his coverage to USC.
And also, and Mark mentioned Jacob Witherspoon. Anybody that doesn't know, probably most do, he's already committed to Ohio State. And he is an impact guy, whether you put him corner, safety, but he has been recruited by Ohio State as a corner. I tend to think it'd be an inside corner, but either way, he was recruited as a corner by the Buckeyes.
Mark, profile-wise, if you match up Rockhill's profile with a former Ohio State recruit, it kind of looks like Marshon Lattimore to me. And I'm not trying to be hyperbolic here, but it's. I don't know if you remember this when Lattimore was coming in, we geeked out about him on offense because he was like one of the seam busters. You know what I mean? Like really just special. Where do you put that in context now with Rockhill?
I have Marshon Lattimore on my Mount Rushmore.
Okay.
He has lived up for his first period of the NFL. He was the Deion Sanders, take Mike Evans out of the game for 9 games in a row where the guy can't even get an 8-yard catch. That's rare air. I mean, Rockhill, it's funny. Duran Grant is now at Raw Talent helping out coach. He's the head coach at St. Vincent St. Mary. And he had a couple of DBs by me, and he sabotaged me with a question very similar to this. He's like, rank me and Marshon and Albert and put them all in a thing. And right in front of him, he's like, I'm like, you really want me to rank these guys in front of your face? And of course I bail out with, they're all, beauty contest winners. And I would take,
I'm getting a call.
Yeah. But I told him, I said, for some reason, and I think it's like you said, because Marshon was so explosive on offense that you just kind of fell in love with him a little more. So he was always the one. I mean, he was always so twitchy and so explosive and just, every time he touched the ball, like your jaw dropped. Elbert's like that, but not as explosive. Elbert has a little thicker body, like it was a little more built. We kind of said how, maybe if Marshon had some of the training techniques and protein shakes 15 years ago, 10 years ago, whatever it was coming out, he might not have been as light as he was, because he was kind of, and Duran Grant was a little bit frail, and Durant's taken some, heat on his tackling ability. And I joked with him about that he wasn't going to come up and hit Earl Campbell in the hole, but, he would make tackles on the outside. So, like when you start talking about rare air, you start looking for these minute differences in these guys. But boy, Elbert is the thicker, stronger, developed, maybe let's say new age version of a Marshon Lattimore.
It's interesting because in my prior life, I covered the Redskins. So I've got some ties to that organization, media-wise, and Lattimore was traded there to be kind of like their lockdown corner. And when he got traded there, he was injured, and it was his hamstrings. And I wanted to tell them that's with Marshon, that's all you need to know. How are his hamstrings? When he came to Ohio State, I don't know if people remember this. There was a point in time when the fan base, as rational as we are, they were about to give up on Lattimore because he could not stay healthy. He got beaten in a Western Michigan game down the right sideline by Daniel Braverman. I remember this, on a deep ball, and everyone's like, Marshon Lattimore. He came back the next year, and I'll say this, had the best mirror skills as a corner that I've ever seen. It was like preternatural. It was bizarre and incredible. And ironically, they brought him in to do the Mike Evans thing, and he struggled against Evans in the playoffs. But for you Commanders fans, all you need to do is get a health report on Marshon. How are his hamstrings? And if they're good, he's an all-pro. If they're not, he's bumming. Go ahead, Mark.
And when Washington took him and he had the hamstring, he wasn't playing right away, I'm like, that's how good he is, that you would take him, right, wait a month, 6 weeks or 8 weeks to this point where you get to the playoffs, and then plug in the best corner in the NFL who finally has healthy hamstrings. But, yeah, no other player I've ever seen traded like that who's been injured during the trade and like for 4 or 6 weeks after the trade, where you just traded for that guy. He ain't even going to play, but he's that good when he does.
I know, but the Washington fans now, he had one of his outbursts. He and Mike got into it. So the Washington fans don't have the history with him built up in a good way, so they're all negative. And I want to be like, look, man, just get the hammies lined up. He's literally – and that is not that uncommon for a brilliant sprinter. Hamstrings are the most – it's frustrating. But Marshon deserves the benefit of the doubt, that's for sure. All right. There was a question about recruits up here. I'm going to let you guys go off on that for Mika, and then we'll go back, and because the classes are flipping over here. We want to make sure we get all these guys. Good, you guys are good.
Eric Smith was in the corner. Yeah.
All right, I messed it up here. Let's see.
Yeah, I do remember Eric Smith from Glenville and how
hard hitter, man.
Yeah. Yep. Good call there.
All right, Bill. Good. These questions came so fast and furious. Mika had a great question with some new names in there. Oh yeah, we can talk about that forever. Earl Campbell. Here's what I would say. Google Earl Campbell jersey coming off. There's a highlight of him running through the Rams.
If you remember those old jerseys, they were made of the most.
They were tearaways.
Yeah. Yep. But I thought that material was so coarse and so strong. Like, how could you tear it actually away?
But there's a highlight of him. You're not allowed to do this now, but he puts his head down on a linebacker and literally impales the dude with his helmet as his jersey is being ripped off down to his I guess I can't find it. It was a question about all these new recruits. Mika, you can shoot this back up here again. Did I really come in that early? I'm going to get it now. There we go. Sorry. It was a quest. Thoughts on Elijah Durham Smith from Pickerington North? Caden Turner, Dawson Bryant, Ben Cogden, Ace Brown. Mark, I'm going to let you take this, and we will roll out after that.
I'm so happy. as you know, after each season, there are about 1,100 players registered in the class of 2026. I have about 980 of them watched. Another 60 will go down today before I hit the pillow. But I finally got to the defensive ends, and Elijah Durham from Pickerington is my top defensive end in a very weak defensive end class. I don't think there's a defensive end in Ohio that's really a big-time national recruit. I could be wrong. Durham, Smith. And it's funny that the two best defensive ends in Ohio both play for Pickerington North, whether you're talking about Elijah Durham Smith or Malachi Irvin. Yes, go ahead.
Considering their Ohio State National Championship defense had only 3 starters from Ohio on it and 3 of them from Pickerington, not that surprising. Please carry on.
Very well pointed out there. But he is the best guy. He is only 6'3", 220 pounds. Okay, so that spells problems for Ohio State right there. Is he a linebacker at 6'3", 220? No, he does not run around like a linebacker, but boy, does he rush the passer. He will remind you of one of those guys that comes off the edge with, rockets in his shoes and does that type of stuff. But it's not that, Jack Sawyer type. There's no one at Pickerington is saying he's in that neighborhood or that ballpark. So very good. Caden, the kid from Dawson, Brian, is very interesting too. I have him highly rated. He's just a little bit more raw and needs more development. He's got the 6'5" frame. I think he's like 220, 230. Has a lot of filling out to do. Kind of a linebacker edge guy again. Does, like you're saying, is he a 3-4 outside linebacker? So there are questions with these guys. So for Ohio State, these would be camp guys. They wouldn't be early offer guys. Ben Codgan is the guy, the offensive tackle we watched that we go, oh my gosh, he just evaporated 3 kids. Playing a low level of competition, but he is dominating it the way you would expect him. He is an athlete. He's a wrestler. He's someone that you're going to be kicking the tires on him. Bill and I watched him and his brother at the camp last year. His brother went on to be a D2 FCS player, was a little more raw. The younger brother had a little more spunk to him. So, that's the type of player he is. And who was the last one in that question? Sorry, Ace Brown Ace Brown has been around the world. He started off as a linebacker, then he played some tight end. This year he's back to linebacker. He is not good enough for Ohio State. I don't think he has the foot speed for Ohio State. In the linebacker rankings, my top 5 or 6 guys have rockets in their shoes. I mean, can absolutely fly. I have a couple sleepers that are just starting to blow up because I kind of let the report out a little bit early to some people. But there's a linebacker that I think might be one of the best linebackers in Ohio, and we're not even talking about him. So we'll save that. And Dan has given me a project to work on some linebacker videos, so I don't want to spoil the linebacker surprise with my surprise linebacker.
In the business, they call that a tease, people. You'll have to tune in again to get the content. These guys are kicking butt in the offseason like you'd expect. So keep it locked in here to Bucknuts. Who knows what's going to go on over the next few days. We are in uncharted waters, but just remember, everything gets shined through the championship prism. We are the champs. Don't forget that. You won't.
One question just popped up. I said those defensive ends are light. They're 220, 230. And one of the questions was, well, can't they get to 250, 260? Of course they can. But Ohio State usually isn't in the business of taking kids and hoping they do or waiting for them to do it. They usually get to take the kids that are already done. And this is my point in contention all the time is this is why we miss on great players. We're taking the finished prospects out of high school while the kids that are 30, 40 pounds away got to go somewhere else, redshirt, and then we get them in the portal. So
the key part is then we get them in the portal and then we win the championship. So as long as that keeps happening, we will enjoy it. Definitely enjoyed having these guys on. Again, we will be back on Thursday. Have a good one.